جبنا عبقري نمبر 1 عبقري نمبر 2 بيتر ومارك يحكونا شوي
واو
يحكونا شوي عن البيئة تبع الركض بلبنان، لأنه إذا أنا مش غلطانة عم نشوف الركض صار عم بيزيد، عم نشوفهم على الكورنيش، عم نشوفهم أنا قدام طاقة. هل في شيء عم بيصير بلبنان؟ هل في تطوير بشكل عام؟ أعرفكم أول شيء عن بيتر هو ال CEO تبع Beirut Marathon Association. So thank you for coming. في عنا مارك هون، ومارك is a personal coach.
Yes.
He's the founder of Mankitail Mankilab and also the head running coach of Nike. So we have someone that is very technical in the details and someone that has a lot of information about where is running going in the Lebanese environment. So I will let each introduce themselves a little bit. Let's start with Mark.
Hello everyone. اسمي Mark Jibran. I'm a Nike Running Club Beirut coach, certified from Berlin, Olympic coaches and running with Olympic runners there. As well, I'm the founder of Mankitail running community and Mankilab, which is a place, a workstation where we improve and evolve our runs with athletes, runners and non-runners. And we will go through this during our conversation.
Peter.
Nice to meet you, Mark. Sumaya, thank you for having us with you today. My name is Peter Mouracade. I'm the CEO of the Beirut Marathon. Beside that, I'm actually a climber and mountaineer, and I'm the co-founder of Team Lebanon, which is the first team of Lebanese mountaineers aiming at climbing the 7 summits. That's the highest summit on each of the 7 continents. And so far, we've climbed 5 of those. Before I joined the marathon, I used to work in communication, and I worked in communication for 15 years. So I'm a professional of communication, and what I actually studied was finance. So I have a very diverse sort of career. Started in finance, moved to communication and marketing, and now I'm in the field of sports.
You come from an industry of communication. Why this sudden change? Do you think that by joining a sports community is a way to create a better community in Lebanon, or do you feel that it adds value to Lebanon?
Oh, absolutely it does, absolutely. I think that running and sports in general have an important role to play in Lebanon in bringing the communities together and in moving mountains, in my opinion. You know, I apologize for the metaphor. I come from the world of mountaineering, so I always use mountains as metaphors. I joined the marathon, and the way I joined the marathon was a little bit strange. I got a call from a headhunter, and that person said, you need to meet this person. And I said, who's the person? And she said, it's Mrs. May Al-Khalil.
Had you ever run in BMA before?
I had, you know, but the 8K race, the 10K race, previously it was a 10K race. So I had run it, and I was, you know, I didn't know I could run 10 kilometers back then, you know. But that, you know, I was curious about the marathon in general, and I always had this positive impression about the marathon and how it brings so many people from so many different religions, political parties, 18 different religions in one country, 100+ political parties in the same country. It's the same tiny country that we live in. We have more than 100 political parties that are always fighting all year long. We have so many different social economic classes, and you see the clashes between all these people. And for some reason, on race day, you have close to 50,000 people who are all running in the same direction, all have the same smile, all aiming towards the finish line, all branded with their causes. So it's just something where, I mean, when May Al-Khalil gave me the pitch, she said, you know what, don't take a decision, just come with me. I'm going to invite you. I want you to see and watch from your eyes the start of the Blombank Beirut Marathon. And I came, and I had this complete different feeling than I had when I was running. Where when you're a runner, you have this adrenaline, you have the heart that's racing because you're thinking about the distance, the time that you're gonna make. When what you're actually watching, you have goosebumps, and I couldn't help, you know, having some tears running down my cheeks. And I said, okay, listen, maybe I should move from the world that I'm from, which is advertising, communication, which we basically sell stuff to people, into something that has a more noble cause, which is sports.
I think that's a great, that was a great introduction to BMA because this is how I view it as well. I do, Mark, what is your input on the BMA as a runner, as a head coach?
As a runner, it would be totally different than looking at BMA as a coach. Because as a coach, I only...
Give us both.
As a runner, they're doing very good job. And it's good to see BMA or one association in Beirut and in Lebanon bringing up all the runners together, all the sports, man, they're coming to run. Even the mountaineers, the climbers, people who do cycling. So you see people from all the communities around, they're coming and running. Even they're not going the full marathon because it's not something easy to do. But at least they're putting the effort to come along and run side by side. So this is something really good. We can see different clubs doing races in Lebanon, but unfortunately, BMA are doing a great job to bring all communities together and all teams, not communities only, okay, the federation teams. But this is my point of view as a runner. If I was a runner and I am a runner and a coach at the same time, I do always think that I have to participate in the marathon, Beirut Marathon Association event every November because it's the biggest event, not only in Lebanon. You have to think in the region, okay? So we have Dubai and Lebanon. So, and we're doing such a great work in Lebanon comparing to the other countries, okay? But as a coach, it's totally different because when you coach and when I'm coaching, I'm not coaching athletes or runners who just want to do Beirut Marathon. Some of them just want to run 5K. They're aiming to do 2K. Some of them just want to do 42K, but they want to go somewhere else. So I cannot imagine myself or tell you my opinion regarding BMA from a coach perspective. Okay. So when I'm coaching, I'm with the athlete, and it's his objective, not mine.
I'm going to tell a very obvious story, which is the story that we usually tell people. Close your eyes, go back 15 years, wake up at 6 a.m., put your running shoes, go down on Corniche. You're going to be 1 out of 10 weirdos that are running on the Corniche. Now close your eyes, open them again, go tomorrow to the Corniche at 6 a.m. in the morning. You're going to have 200, 300 runners. There is something that is happening, not just in the sport of running, but in sports in general in the country, whereby we have a thirst for sports. And not just sports, fitness, wellness. I mean, sorry, I don't want to advertise your brand, but your brand is actually one of those brands that we have a thirst for today because people want to be fitter, happier, healthier. So there is this literacy, this knowledge that we all want to become better people and better athletes. Now, the marathon in itself, in a country like Lebanon that was fragmented, so many civil wars, issues, differences, you call them, you name them. It was a difficult project. When May Al-Khalil started in 2003, she was a woman who had had a near-death experience, who had been squashed by a bus while she was practicing running. She was training for the Dubai Marathon, by the way. Yeah. And she was left in the coma for 10 days and underwent 37 different surgeries to be able, to first survive and then start walking again. And then they told her, you will never ever be able to run again in your life. And she said, if I won't be able to run myself, I want to work on creating the first marathon in Lebanon. And that was her obsession, and that was her dream. And she worked very hard on making that dream a possibility. So when she came back, after her surgeries in the States, she came back to Lebanon. She went on a bus, really, with a few friends and some members of her family, and she started going from belde la belde, from baladi la baladiyye, from school to school, public schools, private schools, companies, sponsors, etc., trying to bring people together. And when she went to Baladiyat Beirut, the governor said, of course we're going to support you and we will definitely allow you to use our streets to do the marathon. But if you are able to gather 200 people, wow, it will be an achievement. In 2003, she was able to gather 6,000 people. So there was a lot of groundwork, field work, outreach, like we call it, to get all of these people together. Now, can you ask 6,000 people to run 42 kilometers? That's impossible. Back then, 15 years ago, in 2003, when no one was actually training for the sports of running. Now, running is a simple sport, right? You don't need any gear. You need a pair of shorts, running shoes, and that's it. Hit the road. So, since 2003 until today, last year we had 48,000 runners. So that gives you...
هي deserves a clap, no?
Thank you. Yeah. This year we put a ceiling to our race at 50,000 runner. So now we're closing ahead of time, and we have put ceilings to the different races. You asked a question about conversion from fun runners, or walkers as we call them, into serious runners. People who are competitive. Either they want to compete in the 5-kilometer race, or the 8-kilometer race, or the half marathon, or the full marathon. So these guys are driven, and they want records and times. What's the conversion rate? It is in our mission to grow and nurture the running culture in Lebanon. And the running culture starts by recruiting walkers, and little by little, churning these walkers and transforming them into runners. How are we doing it ourselves as Beirut Marathon? We have created a program that's called the 542. And it stands for 5 months of training to run the 42 kilometers distance. 5 months is actually a recommended period of time to be able to run a 42 kilometer. Not at the pace maybe of Mankitail athletes, who I know are extremely fast athletes, and they train throughout the year. But our vision was we want to create a free of charge training program, and we're going to partner up with volunteer coaches who themselves are endurance runners. And not any endurance runners. We selected some of Lebanese champions, some of Lebanese ultra trail and ultra runners. And they are completely benevolent volunteers offering their time. And this program started in Beirut. We had 50 runners, and it ended up with close to 35 finishers of the marathon. We are today at 720 registered participants. We're expecting half of this number to complete the full distance by end of the program. It was initially just in Beirut. Now we have Beirut, Bremena, Saida, Trablus, and Junia. Yeah. So we have 5 different regions today, and the program is meant to keep growing because it's a grassroots program.
Running is not just going using your legs left and right. So do you have different techniques to run? Okay, so if you're running a casual tempo or moderate pace, you don't have to stretch. You don't have to use dynamic stretching because you're gonna warm up your muscles easily after 500, 1K, 500 meters, and then you just hit the rhythm and go. But if you have a track training or speed run, there's different techniques. We're not going to talk about the techniques. Then you have to consider 500 to 1K warm up, and then you do dynamic stretching. So you have to do dynamic stretching because if you're going to start from easy pace, then you're gonna hit the maximum capacity you're gonna do during your run, which is the pace. You have to be well warmed up, and you have to extend your muscles to the max and the joints as well. So now we're going deep into technique.
So
But it's dynamic stretching.
Yes,
That's
this is what I
different
said.
from
Everybody
stretching.
know what dynamic stretching is?
Okay, dynamic stretching, very easy, okay, and quickly. You have to stretch, but very short time stretching, 5 to 8 seconds max. And when you stretch, for example, let's say your quadriceps taking your foot behind your back, you have to keep on swinging or bouncing your leg. You don't have to make it static. Static is like taking the muscle position to extend in a still position. So you have to keep on stretching and bouncing your muscle. All right, so because when you do dynamic stretching, the purpose is not,
It's the opposite of relaxing.
Yeah, no, to relax the muscle, but not to extend the muscle to the max. Because when you start doing the action during the run, the muscle will contract again. So this will be a really risk to get injured. So this is the dynamic stretching. But if you're running, sorry, let me finish. If you're running a long distance, and there's another technique, if you're running a long distance, let's say 5K, because 5K is a long distance, by the way, it's not a short distance. When you run a 5K long distance and you have a technique that after every K you're gonna push for 200, no need for dynamic stretching. As we said at the beginning, you start with warming up, the muscles will understand, your brain will understand, okay? So we have a beautiful machine here. It's a very beautiful machine, so we'll understand what you're doing and what you're asking for your muscles to do.
You're all beautiful, okay? Everybody hear that?
Yes, we are all beautiful.
By the way, the Beirut Marathon Association is an association. It's a non-for-profit organization. Basically, what it means is that by the end of the year, you either have a surplus or a deficit. If you have a deficit, bad. If you have a surplus, good. But the surplus cannot be distributed because you do not have shareholders. So when you have a surplus, this surplus goes into a khazin, and this khazin is actually a bank account that is blocked. All the NGOs will be familiar with that. And the logic behind it is, if there is a crisis or a drama that takes place, for example, our title sponsor refuses to be our title sponsor for next year, we still have enough resources to ensure that this event does not get cancelled the year after. For NGOs, for example, they say, I was meeting with an NGO a few weeks back, and she said, I have $500,000 in reserve. And this $500,000 will help me sustain my NGO, which is a tiny NGO, for 3 years to come in the event of a war in Lebanon. Okay, so what I basically saw was crappy financials, deficit. And what I also understood, and the husband of Mail Khalil had been personally, from his own account, paying for the deficit of the Beirut Marathon for many years in a row because he believed in her dream, and in this part you have to get out of the live as well, because he believed in the project. Now, over the past year and a half, we have improved much our financials. Last year, we were able to close on a surplus of $137,000, and this amount is not confidential at all. Thank you. It's not confidential at all. It's in our annual report. The first thing I said was, you need an annual report. They said, yes, we have an annual report. They showed it to me. It looked like a newsletter where you had no numbers whatsoever. So it's only normal for people to ask questions when they don't have numbers in front of them. Now,
Data is human.
Data is human, yeah.
Data is human because you can start to humanize any organization or any initiative when you have real numbers.
So let's bring down the marathon in numbers. 50,000 runners. Out of those 50,000 runners, you have 29% of registrants, participants, who come for free. Why? Because it was Mrs. Mail Khalil's vision to democratize the sport of running in a country where there is no sports. So the first thing she did was brought so many parties, like public schools, like underprivileged people, like public institutions like the army and other public institutions, and she brought them for free. Even the transportation was for free. So today you have 29% of these people who do not pay anything. Now, 40,000 Lebanese pound is the average ticket price. It's actually the price of the fun run, the 8-kilometer fun run. Out of all of our races, 25% are immediately given back to the NGOs, because that was also part of our mission. It is still today part of our mission is to contribute and give back to the community by being the biggest platform for all of our Lebanese local and international NGOs to fundraise and raise awareness on their causes. So the way it's done is, please, by the way, if you're going to be running this year on November 11, by now you should start thinking, what is my cause? And whatever your cause is, it will be on our website because we are partnered with 195 different NGOs in Lebanon. So you will find them there.
So Peter, the breakdown of the ticket, from what I understand, is that 25% of it
goes back to NGOs.
Money that goes to NGOs.
You select your NGO. You say, I'm going to run for Children Cancer Center or Kunhadi or you name the NGO. From women empowerment to children causes to so many different NGOs that we have in Lebanon. In Lebanon, we might not have an establishment, but what we have and what's working great are the NGOs. So you will dedicate, let's say, out of 40,000 Lebanese pounds, 10,000 go back to those NGOs. So what we're actually left with is $20 to stage a race that is an IAAF, that's the International Athletics Federation, accredited race, and it's been an international accredited race for the past 8 years in a row. And we have been for the past 4 years in a row a silver label. And just to give you an idea, in the world there are about 5,000 road races, 5,000. Out of those 5,000, you have 120 accredited races. And out of the 120 accredited races, you only have close to 30 silver label races. And Beirut City is one of those. So
we should be very proud of the running community.
Yeah. So, and by the way, not all of those races are, the IAF accredits races, not only marathons. So you can be a 42K race or a 21K race, or some of them are 10K, some of them are even 5K. They are labeled by the IAF. And usually, events, they organize one race. So they have one start, one finish. So imagine the logistics of organizing one start, one finish. In Lebanon, we have 11 starts. Why? Because we have so many different categories, so many different races, and they're all happening on the same day. So you can imagine the mess in terms of logistics of coordinating all of these efforts and organizing for a full marathon as well as the other distances. When we looked at the Beirut Marathon last year, one of the key missions we put ourselves is, one, we're going to break our record. We're going to figure it out. Two, we're going to design the flattest race course ever designed for the Beirut Marathon before. Problem is, Beirut is hilly, as you said, and so the exit and way back in are hills. We broke it down on Google Map, and we were able to reduce the elevation significantly, the elevation curve, reduce the number of curves, because if you are an elite that's running at about 22 kilometers per hour, when you have a U-turn or one of those curves, you can imagine like this frame eid ترجع تجي. So we've reduced the number of curves and we made the race earlier. So just by doing that, what we were able to do is reduce the temperature by a couple of degrees, 2 degrees actually, to be exact, when we measured the temperature of previous races to the temperature of that race. And by doing those three things combined together, what we were able to do last year was to break our men record, our women record, our Lebanese women record, because those were elite, international elite, our half marathon men record, and our half marathon women record. Yeah. So it is possible, and may I just add one more thing? Last year we had a better time than New York Marathon. The Beirut Marathon, 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 42 seconds was a faster track than the New York Marathon 2017. So great things are happening. Yes, we are still a hilly city. We are flatter, much flatter than we used to be in the past. And we are attracting a lot of elite runners. So this year we're expecting an elite field of 25 people who are already confirmed, one of which is actually a previous champion of the Chicago Marathon. And most of these news are going to be revealed on our social media platforms. But I want to say that beyond that, when you come to Beirut, you come to experience the city, and you come to experience what it is to be on that day.
Most of the brands and the companies are spending a lot of money to study the new technology, not only for the running shoes. Okay, you can run barefoot, yes, but in 2018, 2019, you cannot run barefoot anymore. Okay, so we're not used to do this anymore. You have to have cushion.
We have about 3 barefoot runners on average every year, by the way, in Lebanon, which is quite insane. But I'm sorry about that.
we know them. But
they're great.
Yeah, but what I'm
barefoot marathoners, fantastic.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say here that it takes more than just go down the streets and run. You have to know what to wear, because you don't want to get injured. And running, it takes a lot of work to do. You have to work out to run. You have to be really strong and build strength to run. Even, especially if you're talking about marathon, you have to put the good breathable and outfit made of the best textile to enjoy the run, and especially in Beirut with the hot weather, with the dust, with the pollution. So it all affects your body when you run. So it's not that easy to run and to be a runner, especially in Beirut.
When I look at a runner in the eyes, what I personally see is determination. And it's not typical to only running, it is typical to endurance sports in general. So cycling is an endurance sport, mountain climbing is an endurance sport. Running is, in my opinion, one of the hardest, if not the hardest, endurance sport there is, because when you are cycling, you have a machine that you are pedaling on. You do not have this impact on your knees. So you need to have this fire in your eyes, and this fire needs to be, in my opinion, powered by your mind first and foremost. Nike has a beautiful vision that I studied for my past 15 years in marketing, which is if you have a body, you're an athlete. If you have a body, you're an athlete. Whatever you are, if you're blind, and we have Mary Cleani, she founded something that is called Blind with Vision. This program is now part of the 542. They have 6 blind runners that have coaches around them, they have guides around them, they have cyclists around them. Mrs. Panayot over there as well. She is one of the trainers. And what they have in common is this fire of getting somewhere.
Mankilab, it's a place, it's like a hidden well-being space here in Jummaiz, 20 meters away from here. And in this place, first of all, we gathered. We are Mankitail running community. Now we have a place where our runners, they come, they take a shower, they change their clothes, they put their outfit. They finish every run with a post-run. Our post-run are not, honestly, they're not like any other communities in Beirut or in Lebanon or in the Middle East. Every post-run, I make sure, and the team, we make sure that runners are stretched, well stretching 15 minutes, having fruits, getting rehydrated and energized. After every run, we make sure that runners are doing this. And this location is more or less, we work on our biomechanics and dynamic moves. So it's not just a place where we, if you want to say functional or periodization workouts, no, it's biomechanics. We focus on the hips and the joints pointing, how to move, how to run, why you need to move your shoulders and your elbows while running, why you cannot run having a straight torso all the way, why you have to lean your back, and where are the points where are the weak points in your body which do not allow you to run faster or to stride wider every time you land on the ground, how you should land. So these are very, very, very critical and important techniques. Runners must know about them, and runners should learn about. They will help the runners to avoid injuries. They will help athletes to become better runners, but will never help a runner to be faster if he will not be committed, well-disciplined, and follow a running schedule. So we have to remember that doing the biomechanics and dynamics and understand our body, it's not only to go faster.
I think that's a very note to end the talk on. It must be fun and not competition. And I think this is the source of sports. And I think it's the source of juste d'être bien dans sa peau and just to have fun. And more of it in Lebanon is needed. And TAQA is still standing on its feet, and I hope to do so and to support the athletic community as much as I can, because I really believe that it's a binding potion a little bit, the sports fever. I'll call it sports fever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for
very much,
believing in
Peter.
that.
Thank you.